Hello and welcome to Ephemera. I am fantasy author Katie Brisky, and we hope you're enjoying our theme music, courtesy of Alex White. Welcome to anyone joining us for the first time, and welcome back to those who have visited our virtual home before. For those who are new, Ephemera is an award-nominated reading series chaired by Jen, who is absent tonight, and myself. And I'm just going to mute myself in a different window. Pre-COVID, we held events in the Glad Day Bookshop, and now we are thrilled to join you here to share the beauty of speculative fiction in our home right here on YouTube. And we'd like to begin tonight by acknowledging that the land on which I live and work is the traditional territory of many nations, including the Mississaugas of the Credit, the Anishinabeg, the Chippewa, the Haudenosaunee, and Wendat peoples, and is now home to many diverse First Nations, Inuit, and Métis peoples. This land is covered under Treaty 13 and is part of the Dish with One Spoon. The land on which Jen lives and works is situated upon the traditional territories of the Erie, Neutral, Huron-Wendat, Haudenosaunee, and Mississaugas, and is covered by the Dish with One Spoon Wampum Belt Covenant. Additionally, this land is covered by the Between the Lakes Purchase, 1792, between the Crown and the Mississaugas of the Credit First Nation. Sometimes, when I'm feeling lost or overwhelmed or adrift, I try to remind myself to pause, to consider the land around me, and to listen to what it's saying. As spring sweeps across my community here in Tikaranto, I see many reminders of beauty. Yes, the buds on the trees, the blue waves of skilla flowers, the birdsong ringing across the ravines. But also, the cycle of the seasons reminds me of the circles which shape our lives. The lengthening days reminds me that the light always returns. And of course, the arrival of spring reminds me that even after the snows come and go, there is new growth. As lovely as the metaphor is, and as tempting as it is to carry it forward, the work of dismantling white supremacist and colonialist structures takes active, sustained, concrete work, and disruptive change. We cannot simply wait for it to arrive as we await for new leaves. And speaking particularly to white settlers, beautiful intentions and words are not sufficient. Action is required, and sometimes the action will be difficult or uncomfortable or painful. Nonetheless, in our local communities, in our daily lives, in the larger structures in which we live, it must be taken in allyship, always in support of nations' self-determined goals and priorities. I believe something beautiful is possible, and I believe it takes the best of all of us. Thank you, and welcome once again to Ephemera. You may have noticed something slightly different about tonight's event. Jen is well and sends her hellos, but she had an immovable conflict. She'll be joining us back again next month, but tonight it is just us. What adventure shall we have? I suppose we shall find out. For now, though, I'm very pleased to welcome our first reader. R.B. Lemberg is a queer, non-binary immigrant to the US, originally from Lviv, Ukraine. R.B.'s novella, The Four Profound Weaves, Tachyon Press, 2020, was a finalist for the Nebula, Ignite, Locus, World Fantasy, and other awards. Their first novel, The Unbalancing, Tachyon, and short story collection, Geometries of Belonging, Fairwood Press, were published in 2022, and their poetry memoir, Everything Thaws, just came out from Beni Yehuda Press. You can find RB on Patreon at patreon.com/RBLemberg, at their website, rblemberg.net, as well as on Twitter at @RB_Lemberg and Mastodon, wandering.shop/RBLemberg. Welcome, and thank you so much for joining us tonight.
Thank you so much, Katie and Jen, who's not here, and everybody who's here today, tuning in or tuning in later on YouTube. I want to also make a short land acknowledgement, and I want to acknowledge that I'm tuning in today from Lawrence, Kansas, which is the ancestral homeland of several tribal nations, including the Kansa, Osage, and Shawnee. And I also want to acknowledge the 4 federally recognized tribal nations which are present in the state of Kansas today, which is the Potawatomi, Kickapoo, Sac and Fox, and Iowa nations. Lawrence, Kansas is also home of a tribal university, Haskell University, which used to be a boarding school. So there's some difficult history here in town, which I want to acknowledge. I am very happy to be reading to the theme of beauty. A lot of my work is connected to this theme. In fact, I would say all of my work is connected to this theme. And for tonight, I decided to choose my most, my gentlest story, my story that I reread when I am looking for comfort. It's a story of 2 artists, and it's an epistolary story. It does end, the reading will end on a tiny cliffhanger, but it is a gentle story overall. So, and the story can be found in my new collection, Geometries of Belonging, and the story is The Desert Glassmaker and the Jeweler of Verdiard. Dearest Maru of House Unknown, I've purchased this 5 days ago a small piece of your glasswork. It fits snugly in my hand, a drop-shaped vial of flame. Desert glass, said the traders, shaped from the desert sand by your fiery magic. It speaks to me, no, more than speaks. It sings of dawns and saturated orange and lapis lazuli, the notes of it resonant and flaring, unveil from the palm of my hand outwards when I hold the vial to bounce off the heavy log ceiling of my house. I think the sky must look much different for you, but enough from me now, a stranger out of your never-seen north. I have not written such a letter before in my life, but I'm asking our mutual friends, Hana traders of the Bilha Oreg, to carry it to you, a small gift of my own shaping. Though it will take this letter 6 months at least to reach you, I hope it will nevertheless find you well. In deep appreciation, Vadrai, Haus Berevjar, Stromha. Vadrai. In deep appreciation, oh, you humor me. That was but a trifle, a shaping out of many that fall, indifferent and callous from my hand, as I stride through the desert, fit to trade for cloth and honey crystal, but no better. I have no idea which one of them you bought. I bid you to let it go into hands lesser than yours, lest my own lack of artistry shame me. What you send me is no such trifle, a jewel of deepest blue, a sapphire. Small though it is precious beyond breath. For when I brought it closer to my face, I saw shapes, golden and severe, arise from the depths of the stone and travel towards my eye. I saw trees that grew out of deep ground, out of these cold and clear wells of your home I had never before had reason to imagine. Luminous trees of light that grow from sapling to youth to 100-year majesty, and then they fade again into the nightfall inside the crystal. I will never tire of looking at it. Oh, I'm curious, Vadrai, I'm so full of questions. Do you truly live among these trees, surrounded by all this water? Does it ever get cold? Do trees speak to you like the sacred tumbleweed that rolls across the desert would speak sometimes to our guardians? What do the trees say if they speak? I will confess that since our Hana friends arrived with your letter and gift, I have been staying up late sometimes foregoing sleep altogether to watch the tree shapes from their birth to folding in the stone. And I have many more questions. Oh, impertinent questions, I'm afraid, if you would entertain them. And if not, I hope they have at least entertained you. I'm sending you some jewels I found in my wanderings across the sands, a tourmaline as pink as dawn and an emerald. Do with them as you please. No longer a stranger, I beseech you, Maru of the Maiba-Ots in the great Buri Desert. Dearest Maru, oh, I am most thoroughly entertained by your questions, even though it took a full year for the Hana traders to return them to me. Oh yes, the trees speak. It is a tongue of bark and in the winter of frost, with all its intricate and ever-changing patterns. In the autumn, the sun touches the leaves and grooves them with the flame's exuberance. In any season, the trees speak slowly. I will confess that I go out sometimes and stand beneath the oaks. I stand on one foot and spread my arms to the sky and sway, like the trees do, as the stars move slowly between the darkening branches. My sister Gaura often accompanies me on such outings, for she is fierce enough to outglare any would-be jester. But even when I go alone, nobody laughs. My words become clumsy and I stumble. So I will write no more, but send the emerald back to you instead. I have never seen a precious stone this large, and I'm afeard that my imagination is not fit for it. Yet I will let you be the judge. From too far away, Vadrai. Oh, Vadrai, it was so good to see your home, revealed to me in the emerald. I was amused by the strange square shape of the house, the pitched triangular roof upon which snow, I believe it is snow, perches so precariously, the intricate carved logs of it, such immense riches of trees. I loved the small snow-hopping birds and the children running outside, running even though clothed in such enormous garments. It was good, too, to see your shape, however briefly. I assume it is you. I wish to know more. I keep turning the emerald in my fingers and the seams continue to emerge. I have not yet discovered an end to them. Oh, to possess such artistry as yours, to work with shaping so small and so precise. I do not know how you do it. I wish to know. I wish to know the shape of your mind. I will not lie to you. I wish to know. I want to understand. I wish to possess such art. I wish to be as sure of it as I am sure of my own fingers. And bones, listen. After your gift reached me, I walked for weeks among the sands as the Bilha traders spread their wares to trade with my kin. I walked, and in the rawness of my yearning, the desert revealed itself to me as it hadn't before. I saw striated bones of forgotten beasts that the wind reveals to those who seek and are true, and ivory combs and great jewels that had been buried by warriors and weavers of millennial past, and sand, always sand, more ancient than people and beasts and their bones. I have shaped for you this offering, a fire drop of desert glass encasing Razu ivory. If you turn it just so, you will see the great beast in flight. With a curious and grateful heart, Maru. My friend, if I may be so bold, Maru, the shape of my mind is no secret. I wield the maker's triangle, 1, 1, and 3 syllables. It is considered rare in the north. 3 deep name magical configurations are rare indeed. Still, Stromha is a land of artisans, small but famous for its arts, and we are trained from birth to take the making configurations, a 3 syllable, or for those who can hold more, the maker's angle, 1 and 3, and finally the maker's triangle, more prized among us than more powerful magics. Artistry takes many shapes. Deep names are not necessary for the arts. My sister, a master carpenter, shapes with her hands alone and carves pinwheels and stars into walnut and blue bazine hardwoods. You have admired her work, I believe, in the logs of my house. Her art is not poorer for the lack of magic. My neighbor, a pen maker, shapes their pens and adorns them with abalone, using but a single 3-syllable. In comparison to many craftspeople and artists here, I am nothing. And I have nothing to hide. I will reveal to you my work. It is simple. Inside the smallest precious stones, there are the deep names of the stones. One cannot see them with the naked eye, but Stromha artisans have brought embiggening glasses to aid the eye in its perception. Between these tiny deep names in the stones are lines of light, the foundational grid that lends the stones their shape, yes, just like the land or a mine, which have grids of magic as well. To introduce my shapings, I interweave the existing grid of the stone with my own structure and its own tiny deep names, so that my shapings exist independently of the stone, yet are bound to it. It is nothing to speak of, with the exception of the embiggening glass, which I send to you now. It is winter here again, and I warm my house with fallen logs on the fireplace, even though I could use magic, but I crave real fire, dreaming of you and your desert wanderings. It is hard to believe that a full year has passed since I sent you my letter. Oh, if only I could shorten the distance, for I would trade more words with you, and gifts, oh, gifts. As I write this, the Razu beast of air and glass is draped over my chair. It talks to me in a language I do not comprehend. I am not ready yet to reveal the sight to my peers, even those well-versed in translation, but perhaps come winter way, I will grow bold enough to show your gift to my sister. The Razu transforms its glass at will, then shapes it back into itself. I'm awestruck and astounded by this achievement. If you'd reveal the secret of your artistry to me, I'd be most grateful, but if not, it is of no concern. A full year shall pass before I can expect a reply, and yet please know that I hold you in profoundest regard. Rodriguez. Maru. The Bilha traders came back without a word from you. It is clear that I have offended. I offer you my apologies and will disturb you no further. V. And I will stop here. It's a bit of a cliffhanger, but you can read the end of the story in my book. Thank you.
Which is available from Fairwood Press, of course. Thank you so much. There were so many lines I just wanted to kind of take and keep almost like a jewel for myself, but I love that we can instead share it with all of you tonight. Thank you so much for being here.
Thank you.
What a way to start the evening. And I mean, I think we've had a great taste of beauty, but you know, when we were putting the scene together, we were thinking to ourselves, you know, what is beauty anyway? Is it aesthetic pleasure? Is it completely subjective and undefinable? Is it, in the words of French philosopher Jacques Maritain, that kind of imperfection through which infinity wounds the finite? If we can cast our minds back to, spring 2019, when we were first sketching out the thoughts for Ephemera, one of the things Jen and I said is that we wanted it to be beautiful. Actually, I think we said our vibe was tragic and beautiful. I don't know how tragic it's been here, but audience, what is beauty to you? What is your take on our theme? Tell us in the YouTube chat. Let's pool our thoughts. And while you do that, I'm very thrilled to introduce our next reader. Ana Rodriguez Machado is a Cuban diaspora writer living and writing in Toronto. Her work has been published in the Malahat Review, the Capilano Review, the Ex-Puritan Town Crier, and elsewhere. Her poems have been longlisted for the CBC Poetry Prize, shortlisted for PEN Canada's New Voices Award, and the Malahat's Review Far Horizons Prize in Poetry, and awarded the Aspiring Canadian Poets Prize. She holds an MFA from the University of Guelph. Welcome, Anna. Lovely to have you.
Thank you. Thank you so much for having me. I'm thrilled to be here, and I'm really grateful to the other readers as well as to Katie and Jen for having me. And of course, thank you to anyone who's watching right now or later on YouTube. I'm going to read a few poems tonight. I'm going to start with one called Tomorrow, which is a new one. Tomorrow. Tomorrow I'll wake up and be different, better, fuller, brighter, more awake. There will be stars in my mouth the shape of moonstones. There will be galaxies exploding in unison in my gut. They say the largest black hole continues to get bigger. It devours its own shadow and calls it love. I'll walk between craters, remember my bad habits, and laugh at how much time we wasted being embarrassed of our own survival. The moon cares little for our collective flagellations. She wears the face of mourning something lost eons ago. Still, we blame her for floods, for our blood, for our reactions to mirrors. Tomorrow, she'll tell me what she meant when she looked at us so lovingly, so covered in light. Tomorrow, I'll wake up and tell her how sorry we all are. I'll get out of bed early. I'll put on my real face. I'll be good. Tomorrow, we'll wake up and be different. We won't need to light ourselves on fire to prove our own remorse. I tell her this, and she says nothing. I understand what she knows. The black hole continues to swallow us up. Okay, this next one, just as a content mention, it has some mentions of death and descriptions of inner bodily organs, just as that, just so you know. It's called A Dime of Guts. A dime of guts. My grandfather used to say, un real de tripas was something that never ended, a story from a neighbor when your boots met in the stairwell, or a republic. Un real is 10 centavos in the old colony's dime. They called it un real de plata fuerte, dime of silver strong. No, mi abuelo called it un real de tripas, tripas being a pig's intestine. A dime's worth of guts, thick silver, unbreaking, more guts than anyone ever needed. The way a story never ends when you want it to, the way a man's beard can grow and grow. My grandfather was not a dime or a peseta's worth of guts. His guts did kill him though, or was it the Republic? We spill guts, trust guts, stuff guts with silver, unravel guts like yarn. When something follows something for so long, it reels stacks of dimes and lifetimes of pesos in shirt pockets. The old colony did stop sending them eventually. Just like someone's guts eventually end in light if you lay them out flat. Okay, this next one also has brief mentions of death. It's called There Are Trees Here, after Jamal May. Tell them there are trees here. When they cannot hide their surprise that you are smiling, tell them again, there are trees here. When they pat the top of your head and smirk, like they can't bear to reveal to you the fact of your despair, tell them again, there have been trees here, stretching down for thousands of years before that man tried to burn everything green, and there will be trees long after he turns from ground to dust. There are trees here and children digging under them. There are llorones and date palms and arecas scratching old skin with long fingers. There are games of trompo and suiza and domino. There is sugarcane and burnt coffee and old ladies yelling at young ladies, yelling at dogs. Tell them there are men who will tell you they love you again and again till the next Heva shows up. There are mothers sewing new dresses from old dresses, from curtains, from manteles. When they pierce you with their unbelieving stares, tell them again. You are not talking about hunger or big words that end in ismo. You are talking about your mother and her mother and what it's like to feed a man inside your house and what it's like to weep at the death of your father. And no, again, you are not talking about death from starvation or shame. You are remembering a man who ate everything he wanted from life before life ate him. And no, you're not trying to get into politics or free mojitos. And no, you do not know when the oldest brother will die and what will happen when the Americans arrive. Keep trying to tell them. Repeat it again. Between buildings dripping with age and abandoned construction projects, behind propaganda billboards and faces of big bearded men making promises we will all die to keep. They are growing as we speak, digging their roots deep beneath the crocodile at the bottom of Caribbean Sea. And I know you are tired, but you must keep telling them. Tell them again, 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 so they don't forget. Okay, this next one is called Año 57 de la Revolución, which translates in English to Year 57 of the Revolution. This is year 57. Los tromboneros serenade two lovers on the wall by the sea. We are as Cubanos should be, warm, effusive, playful. A father teaches his boy to fish, pargo, cangrejo, volador, shark. A woman sings and sells mani at the lights, poses for a photo with her thick cigar. Amaranth red sets in and the sky starts bleeding. We drive. Avocado green lava and melting leather seats past the office of no, endless indigo ocean wall, a left shoe hanging from telephone wire. My camera creeps out from the backseat window. There will be too much to remember, I know. We climb up to the morro and my skin sizzles and flakes. The same skin that used to kiss all this now sheds and slithers, a snake in exile from itself. No, thank you, I can't drink the water anymore. The water that gives life and dignity and death, that separates here from everywhere. I regret the way my body moves, like I haven't had to shower from a bucket in years. You wait while I photograph the emptiness. We know all the dogs are gonna die of scabies. No one's here to take the misery out. We leave once, twice, 1,000 times. There is no coming back to this. We used to think we were so big. We were always leaving. The children kept playing war and we kept drinking the water. We wait for the sun to decide when everything ends. Las claves keep the rhythm. Here comes the rain. Okay, this next one has brief mentions of violence and death as well, bit of a pattern. It's called Hear the Pigs. El puerco aquí anda por la calle con un cuchillo. Anonymous. Here the pigs are roaming the streets with knives. To mean scarcity. I shouldn't explain hibiscus flowers. Garden becomes homeland. I, the queen of the scorpions. One in my brother's shoe. One under my parents' bed. I don't control them. They only love me. Love me, I say, love me. The me is split into 1,000 somethings. I'm all a part of this land. That one feels wetter, the soil more fertile for me to swim in. I swim in hibiscus too. We eat fish for Nochebuena. Nobody wants a knife fight with a pig. This next one is called Originating in or Characteristic of a Distant Foreign Country. You are exotic like hibiscus to him, like a fresh off the tree mango in June, almost too ripe to eat. You give in to his appetite, reshape yourself to fit his mind's creation. I'm not angry. It's natural human behavior to categorize. Survival instinct, fear, desire, all things closer than they seem. You invite him to return to the island with you, and he tours your mind like witnessing a bright, multicolored parakeet open its wings for the first time, its feathers so luscious it hurts. He's surprised, agog, voracious to take. I want to say I'm sorry. In the end, you're the one who invited him. You can't blame him for reacting like a tourist. You can't blame him for categorizing you post your mortem. Closure, he said. You were one of my light-skinned girlfriends. It was the demotion, you see. On the ladder of exotic, attractive, my interesting exotic girlfriend, mango almost too ripe to eat, you were lower than his new lover, knocked down a rung, less alive somehow, worth fewer points in the game. Tucked you over with the white girls, sucked you dry. It was the last time you'd see your grandmother, dead or alive. He was collecting data on skin tones and how hungry he was. Voracious to take, to take, to take. This is the very last one, and it's a shorty. I just want to say thank you again to Ephemera series for having me, and to all the other readers, as well as to anyone watching at home. Thank you. This one's called After. Once the soldiers have all gone home, there's not much to do but wait for the world to end, for the ground to dust, for the girls to get old. Thank you.
Ah, it was a shorty, but it made me make a sound like, no. Anna, that was fantastic. Thank you so much for sharing. And I love how we started with tomorrow and ended with after. Like what a beautiful journey you brought us on tonight. And it segues very nicely into more thoughts we had about beauty. I did note lots of death in the poems, which I mean I think can be beautiful, because after all, we said we wanted ephemera to be beautiful, and then we promptly chose a skeleton deer as our mascot. Another quote that I was thinking of, this time from Rainer Maria Rilke: "Beauty is nothing but the beginning of terror." And it's interesting, I'm looking at some of the thoughts that are coming through the YouTube chat. We've got Grail saying, beauty is truth, truth, beauty. That is all you know on earth and all you need to know. Tiffany Morris, beauty is that which makes the ordinary fascinating. That. And we received not through the YouTube chat, but through a text message. Beauty is whatever those poems made happen in my heart, which I think is also a fantastic take on it. But going back to Prancy, our skeleton deer, and as we're working our way through what ephemera is and what we wanted it to be, it sometimes feels like beauty and death are two sides of the same coin, which suddenly makes Prancy make a lot more sense. And thinking about beauty as the beginning of terror, audience, what do you find both beautiful and terrifying? Tell us your horror recommendations. Tell us your dark fantasy. We want to know. And while you drop those in the chat, it is my pleasure to introduce our next reader. Ariel Marken Jack lives in Nova Scotia. Their fiction has appeared in Beneath Ceaseless Skies, Dark Matter Magazine, Prairie Fire, Pseudopod, Strange Horizons, and more. They curate SF Story of the Day, review short-form speculative fiction for Fusion Fragment, and muse about food and death in SF for psychopomp.com. Find their work at arielmarkenjack.com. Please note, this piece includes warnings for disregard for personal autonomy, blood, body transformation, death and dying, pregnancy, and rape/sexual assault. Welcome, Ariel. We're so glad to have you tonight.
Thank you so much for having me. I'm really happy to be here. I'm going to be reading it's funny you were just talking about the intersection of beauty and terror. I'm going to be reading about half of a short story about things that terrify me. This story is called Sister Silky Siren Shark. It came out last November in Strange Horizons. You can read the rest of it on the website if you like it. They taught us to fear the ocean. The place where the mothers grew, they warned us, is not for daughters to know. The beaches were out of bounds to all but the wisest, those who understood the tides, and the old ones whose time had come to go down to the shore and never return. The rest of us, the young, the foolish, the girls too adventurous to understand that the rules were for everyone's good, stayed safely atop the towering cliffs. It was all we knew. My sisters and I fished all day. We cast our lures from craggy areas made nest-like with bales of dry seaweed, safe above the consuming reach of the battering waves. The silky fur of our outer skins warded off the chill of the wind's inquisitive fingers. We used our own clever fingers to plait long lines from kelp and braid ribbons of salt-glittered laver and bladderwrack into one another's hair. The days were long and the work challenging, but we felt so lovely as we sang and laughed together that hardship was no matter. We chipped the bones of the fish we caught into hooks to catch their friends, and we were content. A ship came to our barren rock once a year. The sailors brought us crates of food, bundles of fine clothes we did not wear, and a new school every time of expectant mothers. These mothers were nearly like us, their faces fresh and unlined like those of the rock's raucous daughters, except that their strange, smooth bodies were as round as gibbous moons. We pitied them for their lack of the fur that covered the bodies of proper silkies, which everyone knew, that only daughters could be. We laughed at their need to cover their tender skin with the sailors' constricting woolen draperies. Ignoring our laughter, they flocked to our own mothers for comfort. Perhaps there was some kinship innate to all those who had but one pitiably thin skin. All of the mothers raised all of the daughters together. Each among us was nearly interchangeable with her sisters, at least as far as the mothers were able to tell. They named us for sea things: anemone, dulse, coral, porphyra, pearl, and me, Coriaster, known all my life as the foremost troublemaker on the isle for my inability to obey the prohibition against descending to the beaches. I could not explain why I wanted so badly to see what was forbidden to me. All I knew was that something about the shore compelled me to dream about touching its crumbling edges. The sound of the waves far below my fishing nest sounded like a song I wanted to learn. I wonder what the ocean is trying to tell us, I said, again and again. My sisters sometimes laughed at me and sometimes agreed that the surf did sound like a message. Do you think it likes us? Do you think it would tell us the truth, or is it a trap? We had no one to ask but each other, and we had no answers. The treacherous breakers at the base of the cliffs drummed us to sleep each night. Their comforting thunder was the foundation of every sound heard on the isle. It echoed up through the tunnels that burrowed down from the caves to the water, the lower passages even we knew we must never dare one another to explore. Their colliginous depths veined the rock with unfathomable darkness. In the high caves, the stone-muted sound of the ocean beating the rock from the inside out sounded much like a vast pumping heart. One day, perhaps, the waves would thin the walls of the lower caves. One day, perhaps, the whole isle would collapse into the waiting ocean. But to us, our home seemed wholly unbreakable. We slept on seaweed-stuffed pallets in the salty cave mouths yawning under the cliff tops. Coral, Porphyra, and I liked to curl up together near anemone, dulse, and pearl, our sleek, gray-furred limbs entwined to hoard precious warmth. We shared a cave with most of the daughters, though we had little care for those much younger or older. We were always together, the six of us. We had always been together, and we could not imagine any other way of life. Coral and I were in charge of chipping fishhooks for pearl, Porphyra, anemone, and dulse. She frequently followed me into mischief. I never could cease my attempts to slip past the watchful mothers and find my way down to the shore, to see for myself what the fuss was about, to try and answer the ocean's unceasing call. And so we were frequently, punitively paired for the most arduous of necessary tasks. The splintery bones made our fingertips bleed, but we were too stubborn to mind. I licked the warm blood from her fingers, and she from mine, and that was all the comfort we needed. We liked to sit a little too near the edge of the cliff, smashing sharp stones against fish bones and watching for the ship. Our better-behaved sisters sang foam-capped carols while they trolled for mackerel and capelins. Their lovely voices launched any trepidatious expectations into the swift-drifting clouds. I laughed with joy to hear their music blending with the song of the waves, but sometimes I found myself shivering, even in the heat of the noonday sun. In my bones, I knew that our life was too beautiful to last. When the sailors came, they lined the eldest daughters along the cliff tops. When the year came for us, we were not prepared, even though we had known it was coming. They walked all around the six of us, prodding, inspecting, surveying our bodies, and never once meeting our eyes. They made their selection, trussed up in the finest silks from their bundles, flimsy, fluttering garments, much less substantial than the woolly fabrics the furless mothers wore. We did not think to resist. The choosing had always been part of the annual deliverance. A handful of daughters traded for food, for windproof cloaks, for the survival of everyone left on the rock. To fight against being taken would go against everything we understood to be correct. Long ago, our legends told us, 3 daughters had tried to defy their fate. They crept down the forbidden passages rotting the heart of our rock, thinking to hide there until the sailors left. They went in too far, and the deep down darkness ate them. We had wondered what we would do if the sailors came for us, but even Coral and I, disobedient as we were, did not wish to let ourselves be eaten in the name of defiance. We stood as still as if we were carved from the rock and let the sailors choose as they pleased. They marched the chosen daughters onto the ship. Coral and I were taken, as were Anemone, Dulce, and Pearl. We did not know whether to feel glad or sorry for Porphyra, left behind for the sailors' unknowable reasons. The mothers asked the sailors something we could not overhear. Neither could we hear their reply, but our departure was trailed by the sound of mothers weeping while rough men laughed. On board, they stripped off first our diaphanous clothes and then the sheltering warmth of our soft gray outer skins. We were not permitted to sing or even to speak. "We know your tricks," they admonished. "You'll not sing this crew into a stupor. You won't escape that way." It astonished us to understand that in some way the sailors feared us. No one had ever told us our voices had power. We huddled in silence, missing the mothers and littler sisters we had always taken for granted, and missing as well, perhaps most of all, the skins the sailors had stolen. "Porphyra is lucky," Anemone wept. "If she is alone, at least she has her skin." I could not tell if I agreed. I missed my skin, but I also missed my sister. At first, it took every seaman present to restrain us from escaping the hold and diving over the railings. The sisters who managed to slip above deck reported, when the sailors forced them back below, that the ship was followed by a school of sharks. We wondered if it was better to find our fate among the finned than with the sailors. Even when the sharks fell back, the wave churned rapidly behind the ship, alluring. We knew that it wanted to pull us in, down, under. Drowning seemed no worse a fate than remaining on board. I thought it must surely be time to meet the waves and learn their song. The deck was so much closer to the water than the cliff tops back home had been, and as I listened, I almost understood. And I'll end there on a bit of a cliffhanger. If you enjoyed the story, the rest of it's available to read on the Strange Horizons website. Thank you so much, Katie, and thank you to Jen.
Thank you. I was going to say a bit of a cliffhanger.
Just a little bit.
Just a little bit. So in just a moment, I'll drop that link in the chat. Thank you so much, Ariel. It's a beautiful story, but also so beautifully read. I think it was just one of those ephemeral moments we're so lucky to have. So thank you for gifting us that tonight.
Thank you so much.
And looking to the chat, we have some other examples of beauty and terror. And I think actually, again, that story was a really great example for myself. But we've got girls saying space is astoundingly beautiful while also being deadly, terminally disorienting, and merciless. Mountains and cliffs, so stunning, but so tall and easy to fall from. And Susan Palumbo saying, I like the surprise of beauty. You can have a definition in mind, but I like for beauty to catch me off guard when I didn't expect it. It's so true. And while, we love here in Ephemera, we love our bones, we love our swamp witches, there are other shades of beauty, not just decay, but restoration, not just loss, but reunion, not just the strange, but the smile of the person most familiar and loved to us in the world. And so, a question to all of you. What is the most beautiful thing you've ever experienced? And we've had some other beautiful moments come in through the chat, asking what some of the most beautiful moments we've experienced are. Tiffany has said, romantic answer, my husband's face when we said our vows. General answer, every winter sunrise I've ever seen. And you know, something beautiful I think I've experienced actually is a group of people coming together every month to celebrate speculative fiction of many different perspectives, many different experiences, and doing this even through a pandemic that is still ongoing, even through the world that we started in 2019 really not existing anymore. We were talking before the show about ephemera really are those things which were meant not to survive, but did. And I think it's beautiful that we are all still here together, my friends. And when I think about beauty, I often think about this community we've built. So thank all of you for being here tonight. Thank you, readers, for being here. It has been my absolute pleasure. And until next time, don't forget to follow us on Facebook at Ephemera Series, Twitter for occasional updates. And of course, I'm just going to put us on speaker view so we can see everyone. There we go. And of course, please subscribe to this YouTube page. If you like to track your adventures by a planner or calendar app, please feel free to put a standing get together with us the third Wednesday of every month at 7 p.m. Eastern Time. We'd like to thank the Ontario Arts Council for their funding assistance. And as we close out tonight, we'd also like to thank our fantastic readers, our composer, Alex White, our friends, families, loved ones, and you. Thank you for staying with us. You are a beautiful community, and we will see you next on May 17th, right here on YouTube. Good night, everyone. And I believe